Operation Truth. The show they don't want you to see. Now, here's your host, Lou.
My name is Lou Palumbo. This is Operation Truth. With me today, as usual, I have Tom Fuentes, my co-conspirator, as I like to refer to him. Tom, I remind you, is a former assistant director of the FBI with a very distinguished career and an immense amount of knowledge regarding some of the history in this country. I want to start off before I segue into Tom, because there's a lot for us to continue to talk about when we started to look at the decline in trust or belief in the government. Post-Kennedy assassination, we started to realize there was trouble in paradise, and that things that we believed were legitimate, not so much the honesty and the integrity and the truthfulness of government at all times, not so much. You know, and Tom and I are going to continue to talk about that. We're in the 90s right now with the Clinton administration, which I'll get into, but I just want to make a couple of quick observations. You know, I took the time to watch these hearings with the House of Representatives. And first one, of course, was the whistleblowers, which is, I just don't know what to say. You know, I always make reference to the 51st State of the Union, the state of denial. I am not a Republican nor a Democrat, and I believe Tom is of the same cloth I am. We're Americans and we're parents first and foremost. And what drives the show is our concern for the young people, to whom we owe an explanation, which at some point I hope I have the opportunity to address our young people, perhaps in academic environments, collegiate environments, to try to make sense of what the hell they're living today, because they were born into this lack of trust and belief. Myself and Tom and people of our generation evolved into it. You know, we never questioned the honor, the integrity of our elected officials. It was just something we didn't do. But in any case, so I watched the hearings with the whistleblowers, which were quite interesting. And what I really found disturbing, and this has no political tie, I'd be equally critical if it was the Republicans doing this, but the Democrats got into this mode of operation where they went back and revisited everything that Donald Trump did wrong. Well, I hate to break it to you, but Donald Trump's being held accountable. And this is a simple conversation for me. If Donald Trump is guilty of the things they've accused him of, he needs to be held accountable. One set of rules for everybody. This is not a complicated conversation. As we're seeing, the divide and the polarization in this country is so harmful that it's taken truth out of the discussion, civility, decency, respect, all of the above. So they're making reference to Donald Trump every time we turn around and start talking about two-tier system of justice or the testimony of these two IRS agents, which is, I don't know how they're going to countermand the credibility of these two individuals. But, you know, what I found interesting, among other things, is that during these hearings, they made reference to two-tier system of justice. And a young, you know, intelligent congresswoman spoke about the disparity in numbers dealing with minorities, the numbers of arrests and incarcerations, the numbers of deaths, and the numbers of this. You're 100% right. But when are you going to figure out how to fix this instead of continuously bringing it up to us, reminding us of how egregious it is, and not do something about it? I've spoken to the masses about this on numerous occasions. I speak to everyone. It deals with the disparity in which minority children grow up in this country to this day. So you can blow all your smoke about all these numbers and this. You're right. Why is there a disproportionate number of blacks that are incarcerated compared to whites? Why is there a disproportionate number of blacks killed by other blacks compared to whites? Why are there disproportionate number of blacks engaging in criminal activity, violent criminal activity compared? There's an explanation, guys. You have to stop this practice of depriving them of an opportunity to learn. And by the way, while you're at it, make their streets safe so they're not collateral damage. Upgrade their housing. They live like animals. I don't care who likes what I just said. I'll prove it to you because I lived it. Their medicine is substandard, so is their diet. So you can keep throwing it up in our face about the two-tier system. You're right, it exists. I didn't hear you utter one word during any of your addressment during these hearings about what the fix is, and I just gave you the fix. And here's the bad news, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to cost bodies. And there's a way to fix this. We just don't really want the heavy lift in the room. We want to flap our gums, and we want to criticize and further polarize this country. What I listened to was just appalling. Nothing to do with the legitimacy of the testimony of these two Internal Revenue Service agents who have suffered for this, careers, right? FBI, whistleblowers, loss of careers. The FBI has become a really interesting animal. Not only do you lose your career, but they prevent you from making gainful employment. They kind of polarize you. I don't understand what kind of country we've evolved into, but I remind you, this has been all a part of the conversation with Tom as to how we got to this point, this declination in our society. Guys, you got to pay attention. There is a road back, but I want to tell you something else. Americans can't sit here distracted. People abroad refer to us as fat and happy. That's what they call us, people outside this country. I've heard it in interviews. I say we're distracted, first and foremost, and importantly, by your children, their diet, their education, the safety of their neighborhoods. I got the memo. You got to pay rent, car payments, taxes, utilities. I got it. We're all distracted, and they capitalize on that fact. But let's put the problem-solving hat on for a change. Tom and I are going to go into the 90s, and we're going to kind of lightly brush up against the Clinton administration to continue this explanation as to how we don't believe our government, lack of credibility, truthfulness, and our media, who, by the way, as I remind you, are involved on a daily basis of pitting us against each other, polarizing this country and dividing this country. There's also another very important topic that I've been speaking to on this podcast when it was formerly known as Between the Lines, about this sex trafficking. I had a gentleman on the Zoom call with me, and see, I'm not the most literate guy on the planet. Tony Sparks formed an organization called Phantom Rescue. He has a lot of support from another individual. I don't know exactly the extent of the relationship between he and Frank Smith, but Frank Smith's got a very distinguished career in service to this country, and he's very proactive in addressing this. This sex trafficking isn't just something that's happening at the borders, guys. We're hearing families are selling their children into sex trafficking. We are hearing that this problem on the lands of the indigenous people is quite pervasive. You know, for whatever reason, the government just chooses to ignore it. I'll be honest with you, both sides of the aisle. I don't hear anybody in the Republican side speaking about this problem either. But all of a sudden, we have another movie come out now, Sounds of Freedom. It's garnered everybody's attention. I think it's worth taking a look at, to be very candid with you. But I go back and I ask you, look at some of the prior podcasts with Between the Lines, where I made reference to it on a weekly basis. In fact, I had a live radio show here from 5 to 6 on WBOB. I spoke to it repeatedly about Phantom Rescue and the purpose and need of an organization like this. Guys, the country's become quite toxic. I don't know how we got to this point. Tom and I talk about it all the time because generationally, we are somewhat distanced from this. This is not the America I know, not the America I grew up in, but I believe in this country because it's resilient. It would be a novel idea if the media stopped empowering a minuscule percentage of this population to make it look like they're controlling the country. Guys, I gave you an interesting statistic. 0.5% of the published population of 335 million is 1,675,000. 0.25% of that is half of that number, about 800,000. We don't have 1 million people up in arms every day in this country, protesting, disrupting, and destabilizing this country. Why are you making it seem like the house is burning down, guys? I know that's how you get your ratings and your jollies and your ridiculously large salaries, as you insult everybody on the planet. You know, you accuse Donald Trump of that. People in the media do the same thing, both sides of the aisle. They're condescending. They are overly ridiculing elected officials, government officials, without really knowing anything factually. It's all driven by your agenda. Let me tell you something else about these hearings before I move on. I flipped through the channels. The only network that covered these hearings was Fox, not MSNBC and not CNN, your other two 24-hour news networks. Neither one of them carried a moment of it. I guess it really isn't that important to get to the truth. This is really about holding on to your agenda. And boys and girls, I have bad news for you. I always use an interesting expression. I say the day you thought would never come will arrive, and it's going to arrive here. We're taking this country for granted and everything about it that makes it this country. Freedoms. Another discussion about Robert Kennedy now. I'm listening to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the former DNC chairperson under when Hillary Clinton was running for president, right? criticizing Robert Kennedy about anti-Semitism. Listen, if Robert Kennedy said something anti-Semitic, should be held accountable. By the way, where was Wasserman Schultz when Tlaib, Omar, and most recently Piapol are all spewing this anti-Semitism? What do you have, like multiple sets of rules in your head? I have something else to say to Ms. Wasserman Schultz, and this has got nothing to do with her political affiliation. I would say this to you if you're a Republican. You actively engage in subversive activity to undermine the presidential election process. You got caught with your emails, okay? Donna Brazile lost her job at CNN after receiving questions to the primary debate between Clinton and Bernie Sanders. And Mr. Sanders even came out and said you're undermining his efforts. So how thick is the hypocrisy here? I didn't know you could engage in this type of activity and hold an office. Where's the accountability? They should remove you from office and install someone that has some level of honor, integrity, and trustworthiness. In any case, I'm going to go to a quick break. I want to bring Tom in because you can see, as usual, once I get talking about these issues, I get into gear.
The world is in crisis, with political unrest and financially unstable countries trying to print their way to prosperity by taking on trillions of dollars of new debt. It's incredibly concerning. That's why you need to own silver as a hedge. So call today to receive the free hard asset information kit on how easy it is to own silver. Green energy demands will possibly turbocharge silver prices to 50, 100, even 300 an ounce, according to many experts around the world. Silver is a proven hedge against inflation. Since 1971, silver has returned over 11% when averaged yearly. Silver is a proven wealth preservation for hundreds of years. Hard Asset Management is a trusted leader in precious metals and rare coins for nearly 40 years. We have the guaranteed lowest prices, fast and easy ordering, expedited shipping, with award-winning customer service available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. CST, Monday through Friday. So protect yourself from the chaos. Invest in stability with Hard Asset Management. Call now and get your free Hard Asset Management information kit on how easy it is for you to own silver. 844-426-4653. 844-426-4653.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to bring Tom Fuentes, my co-host with this show. And we've lost faith and belief in our government. We don't trust the government. We don't trust the media. We've destroyed the credibility of the FBI. Actually, a couple of individuals, and I mean just a couple, have managed to do that. We're bastardizing our judicial system. We're turning into a banana republic where, your political opponent we start to prosecute so you can't run against you. Is that what we're living today? But in any case, I want to continue this conversation as we have through the decades and the administrations of these elected officials as to how we got here. So Tom and I, last time, if you listened to the last podcast of Operation Truth, we were talking about kind of like the Clinton years. And before I get Tom into a discussion about that, and I'm going to ask Tom to segue into the Clinton Foundation, I want to mention something to everyone. The President of the United States, regardless of his political affiliation, committed perjury sitting in the West Wing of the White House over oral copulation, guys. Now, I don't want to have to spell that out for you in layman's terms, but it deals with a sex act. I know the president didn't think that this was a sex, but it is. We charge you as a sex crime. But most importantly, where was the accountability once again? Absolutely zero. I think he got fined. I think they disbarred him in Arkansas. I think the Supreme Court disbarred him for a short window of time. But at the end of the day, we got to pass. How do you commit a felony as the president and everyone can jointly, regardless of your political affiliation, not go like, I hate to say this to you, but you have to go. I don't care who you are, who you're affiliated with. You can't do this. This is not the standard that we're going to uphold or accept as our government, period. So I know, Tom, I'd like to get a little input from you because I know you were in the FBI during this time. Give me a little insight yourself as to this little episode.
Well, Lou, during that time, everybody was trying to say that going after Clinton was because of the sex act that he had committed. That's not really why they went after him. They went after him because he lied under oath and said, I did not have sex with that woman. And so that's what it was for his lack of truthfulness while he was under oath. That was the issue.
I agree 100%, Tom. I sometimes wonder, this is a man that's a Rhodes Scholar, and I see two sides to Bill Clinton, to be honest with you. Truthfully, he has a little predatorial issue, but he happens to be a brilliant man in the same breath. What I don't understand, Tom, is who are the guys advising him that when he got into a press conference, he started waving his finger about, I did not have a sexual relationship with that woman. Why didn't he just say, my personal life isn't your damn business? Because at the end of the day, I don't think you, myself, and 99% of this country care about anybody's personal life. We care about how you perform when we elect you into an office. I didn't elect him to have a soap opera, but how does a guy as smart as this, or the people around him who knew this was going on, Leon Panetta knew. Who's the young guy now who's on ABC? He left. Stephanopoulos knew as well. She worked in Panetta's office, Monica Lewinsky, who, by the way, was my client. Nice young lady, by the way, and her mother was a doll. I mean, what planet is he living on? That you think you're compelled to talk about your personal life? Quite frankly, any arrangement he had with Hillary Clinton, his wife, is between he and Hillary. Just like who you sleep with at night. I really don't care, and I don't want to hear about it. But someone whispered in his ear and said, you know, deny, deny, deny. You know it's never the crime, it's the cover-up, Tom, and you hit the nail right on the head. He committed perjury. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right. The reason it becomes an issue is that basically he's in a supervisory position over everybody in the executive branch, or wannabes or groupies or all of that. So, you know, what he did as that kind of power, that kind of position, was regarded as intimidating a young woman into going along with whatever he wanted. And that would be illegal if you were a supervisor. We talked, no, you said I was in the FBI at the time. We talked with each other at the time that as supervisors or assistants in charge or special agents in charge, if we had done that with a subordinate, that was a firing offense. You could not do that. And so that's what they were looking at, is that Bill Clinton was basically in a leadership position, basically taking advantage of a young woman. Now, I realize she's 21 and she should be able to do what she wants, but that was kind of the undertone politically, was that he was taking advantage of the fact that he's the president and she's much lower on the totem pole than he is.
You know, Tom, if I could just make a quick observation for everyone, because I've had the benefit of having to work in Washington, D.C. with my business. I've been in the Rayburn building, the Supreme Court. I've been in a number of these institutions. So let me give you a little backdrop here, guys. There's a lot of young children. They're children, 21 years old, you're a child. I don't care what anybody wants to tell you. You're still on a learning curve big time. But the bottom line is they're all in that environment, and that power is an aphrodisiac. Let me tell you a little bit about Monica. She was looking for a place in the sun, validation, okay? That's what this was about her. And I hate to say this to you, Bill, but at the end of the day, you should have been a support mechanism validating her correctly instead of exploiting her being enamored with you, which is exactly what that was. You know, I don't know how this became so complicated for people to think about, but to be candid with you, we shouldn't even be talking about this today if this guy really had a brain in his head, because he would have never entertained any discussions regarding his personal life. Tom, as you and I have just mentioned, the minute he did the old finger wag, I did not have a sexual relationship. I hate to break it to you. If you force a woman into oral copulation, Mr. President, we charge you with the sex crime. Am I right, Tom?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Guys, you know, this is just telling you the truth. But with that being said, it doesn't stop here with the Clintons. I want to get into this whole thing about the Clinton Foundation, Tom. Give me some insight on this discussion.
Okay, well, up until the Clintons invent the foundation and start that, the best way to basically bribe a politician for pay to play, quid pro quo, was money to their campaign. Well, you can only give so much money to a campaign. And then even with the super PAC and all of that, you can give maybe a couple $1,000s. But in the modern era, that's coffee money. What the Clintons figured out was they created a charitable foundation, which under tax law is a 501c corporation, charitable corporation, that they could take in as much as they want. So within a very short time, they've taken in over $2 billion from all over the world, from governments themselves, from CEOs of major companies, from oligarchs, from international crooks, you name it, no restriction, no vetting. And they incorporate so that the offices are in New York and in Little Rock. And based on that, pretty much realized they're never going to have a serious audit. Nobody's going to really look at what they're doing. So they're telling the world that they're going to take that money and cure malaria in Africa and cure starvation in poor countries and do all these great things, vaccinate children to not get these debilitating fatal diseases. And what comes up is that, they live pretty large off of that money, traveling first class all over the world, um, hiring their daughter to be a $900,000 a year salaried employee of the foundation. So they get involved in all of this use of the money for their own personal living, basically. And they don't get audited, they don't get fined, they don't get anything. So that amount of money is unbelievable. And nobody stops it, nobody looks at it. So my home state of Illinois, home city of Chicago, the governor, Blagojevich, when Obama becomes president, he's in the position to appoint a replacement to finish Obama's term the next 4 years in the US Senate. Well, that starts a bidding war. So all of these young, ambitious Democrats, including Jesse Jackson Jr., start bidding. And it's going to be basically campaign contributions. So it's going to be 10,000, 20,000, somewhere in those areas, basically coffee money when you put that up against 2 billion for the Clinton Foundation. So in any event, Blagojevich gets caught, major FBI investigation, and the FBI through wiretaps learns who's making what offer to Blagojevich to buy that seat, to be appointed by him for the remaining 4 years. Now, Blagojevich gets convicted. He gets sentenced to 14 years in prison for doing that, for trying to accept these bribes to sell Obama's seat. Now, later, President Trump commutes the sentence after he does 10 or 12 years, doesn't pardon him, but commutes it, basically saying, okay, you've done enough, you can get out of jail. You're still a convicted felon. But that was the issue then, that if you tried to bribe somebody in the old-fashioned campaign contribution manner, or give them free gifts and trips around the world, all that type of thing. But if you do that, there's limitations. You're only going to be able to give that person so much money before all the red flags are raised, or limitations on what they can give their family, unlike what we're seeing in the current Biden administration, where even the grandchildren are getting rich. So that's one of the differences. So anyway, you have Blagojevich, again, ends up serving, I think, about 12 years in federal prison. And you have Bill and Hillary living large off that foundation.
Can I just say one thing about this, Tom, so the public understands, or our listeners understand, as to what is exactly wrong with these foundations or these corporations we form that represent institutions? When you donate to them, basically, actually, they're allowed to use 90% of that money administratively. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom?
Well, allowed or not, they do it.
Okay. Well, they seem to be allowed to, because I brushed up against this with another couple of cases I had privately. And that's that's exactly what went on. Not a little bit. That's exactly what went on. Number one, I will tell you, there's an institution, it's Tunnels to Towers. 95% of the money that you donate to them goes to the actual intended recipients. That's something that the public has to understand. You need to inquire into this, because it's part of what we're talking about right now, Tom. They fed all this money into this foundation, and all we did was enrich somebody's lifestyle. But you know what the real issue is here, Tom? Again, there's no accountability. And I don't think, and I'd like you to correct me if I'm wrong, if there's a legal remedy to what they did. In other words, it sounds like what they did was actually somehow permitted under the law. Tom, let me take a quick break, sir, if you don't mind. We're going to come back to you guys in a second. Just stay with me. This is Operation Truth. Please get involved in this conversation, because we're living in a toxic America today. And to be honest with you, the society is a little twisted, and we intend on untwisting it with these conversations. And I invite anyone that wants to challenge us in a civil, respectful, decent manner, a couple of terms that have left the conversation, to please get involved with this here. Stay with us. We're going to be right back, guys.
The world is in crisis, with political unrest and financially unstable countries trying to print their way to prosperity by taking on trillions of dollars of new debt. It's incredibly concerning. That's why you need to own silver as a hedge. So call today to receive the free hard asset information kit on how easy it is to own silver. Green energy demands will possibly turbocharge silver prices to 50, 100, even 300 an ounce, according to many experts around the world. Silver is a proven hedge against inflation. Since 1971, silver has returned over 11% when averaged yearly. Silver is a proven wealth preservation for hundreds of years. Hard Asset Management is a trusted leader in precious metals and rare coins for nearly 40 years. We have the guaranteed lowest prices, fast and easy ordering, expedited shipping, with award-winning customer service available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. CST, Monday through Friday. So protect yourself from the chaos. Invest in stability with Hard Asset Management. Call now and get your free Hard Asset Management information kit on how easy it is for you to own silver. 844-426-4653. 844-426-4653.
Guys,
Okay.
we're back, ladies and gentlemen, and I have with us Tom Fuentes, who is interesting, to put it to you politely. He's an historian. He's had a distinguished career in the FBI as an assistant director, and he has intimate knowledge of many ongoings in this country, whether it's classified information, SCIFs, which is a location in which it's managed, who's allowed to have it, who's not allowed to have it, who's allowed to classify it, who's not allowed to classify it. And now we're talking about the Clinton Foundation. Tom, I'd like you to make some more of these points concerning the Clinton Foundation.
Okay, the fact that people gave that money with the idea that they're going to get favors in return, whatever it might be. The last full year of the foundation before Hillary, or while Hillary is running for president, the foundation takes in over $220 million in donations. After she loses, and she's no longer going to be in a powerful government position, the following year they took in a little over 20 million. So that was the difference, that all of these oligarchs, foreign governments, foreign gangsters, uranium companies, all of the CEOs of those companies decide, she can't do anything for us now, why give her the money? What good is that? And that proved what their intentions were and what the basis of the foundation was, to convince people that you're doing righteous things, give us the money so we can do righteous things, and then they don't really. And so the people that stopped donating, did suddenly malaria get cured in Africa? Did hunger get cured around the world? Did diseases, did all of these things that the foundation said they were trying to make better, did they actually make them better and now they don't need the money anymore? I don't think so.
Did anybody question it, though, Tom? I mean, I hear
Who's going to
everything
question it? They didn't get audited. Nobody questioned it. If anybody did, then that's because they're anti-Hillary or anti-democratic or racist or some issue like that, or they're pro-Trump. Had nothing to do with what are the actual activities this foundation engaged in the time that they were in existence. And that's where you find out.
Very interesting, Tom. You know, Tom, I want to continue this conversation. I think we pretty much synopsized what took place during the Clinton years, which once again lends itself to a lack of credibility or believability in the government. I mean, how are we supposed to trust the president when he commits perjury or anything he says afterwards? And as I said earlier, and I didn't mean to be comedic about it, but if you're lying about oral copulation, or I'm going to say it to you in layman's terms, because it's probably allowed, a blowjob, what if it was serious, folks? And now we're talking about what went on with the Clinton Foundation and how they masterfully, developed this organization to take in a ton of money that allowed them an enriched lifestyle. And once again, it goes without accountability. But again, the average American person is not watching Bill or Hillary or George Bush or any of these elected officials to try to figure out what it is they're doing legitimately or not. We're on the precipice of something very different right now, which we're going to get into at some point, not at this crossroad, but we are going to get into this thing about what's going on with Hunter Biden and his father and Burisma. I don't want to go off on a tangent, Tom, which I'm famous for, but I'm struggling to understand that as the vice president of the United States, you allowed your son, who's a admitted crack addict and alcoholic, to get involved in a country, the Ukraine, which has got corruption problems, and a company, Burisma, has corruption problems. That's just the kind of like the segue in. But what I want to do, Tom, is finish the Clinton era, if that's okay with you. And I want to step into the George W. Bush era, because I happen to like the Bush family that doesn't excuse them of some of the foreign policies here, this insinuation into the Middle East, into a part of the world we really don't fully understand, and they don't fully understand us. But we made some foreign policy faux pas prior to that. You know, we spoke about Afghanistan, arming and funding the Mujahideen, where we've been in the backdrop, yanking strings, and you wonder why people are upset with us. And I want, we have a short amount of time left, but I want to have Tom finish making some very important points regarding this Clinton Foundation. Tom, if you would.
There's several examples of, like I just mentioned earlier, about why people stop donating when she loses power or is clearly not going to be the president. So that's a key issue with the Clintons. Now, these things did not just come up all of a sudden. A very good friend of mine, Peter Schweitzer, who's an outstanding investigative reporter, and his team, he wrote a book about 5 years ago about all of this. He documented it, how many millions of dollars were being taken in. And so that got a little bit of attention at the time, but not as much as it should have. And again, when Hillary's out of office, it's kind of like, who cares now? She's gone. The Wicked Witch is dead. But over time, this starts to haunt us when you see that she's still not completely out of the political picture to be able to come back and talk about some of this stuff. So, but you had mentioned in the last episode that Hillary had learned, or that Oliver North learned from Hillary about getting rid of your emails. The actual truth is Oliver North didn't know any better. He deletes in the Iran-Contra scandal, where he sold guns to Iran. Iran gave the money to him, then he donated it to the Contras in Nicaragua to overthrow their communist regime. Now, Congress had turned President Reagan down for supplying money. He wanted to give money to the Contras. They said no. So that's where this scheme comes up, to go around congressional authority and get the money to the Contras. Now, Oliver North, when he gets caught, deletes all the emails on his desktop, his government computers, his devices, not realizing that in the federal government, if you have any government-issued device, your emails, text messages, phone calls, they are on there forever. You can delete all you want, but they're in the main servers in Washington. So Hillary, when she wants to do foundation business and become Secretary of State, she doesn't want to have all that business on government computers. That's where she comes up with the scheme that she'll hire a computer company to install servers in her basement at her home and use those to conduct foundation business. And then if people start to question what she's been doing, has she been using her State Department position to unfairly raise money for the foundation, any of those things, if she gets caught, what does she do? She gets the subpoenas go out, subpoenaing 33,000 emails, and she quickly destroys her own server, her own portable devices, hammering Blackberries, you name it, because she knew, if I destroy the system that I have put in my house, my personal system, I won't be on the federal grid. They won't be able to track what I did. And that was a highly successful. That works. That's why she doesn't get prosecuted.
Well, you know what, Tom? Because I'm thinking about this now, and we're actually preparing to transition into the 2000s with George W. Bush. But I'm wondering if we should stay with this conversation with the Clinton name in the middle of it, because as we both know, in 2008, President Obama becomes sworn in, and he makes Hillary Clinton the Secretary of State, which is that window of time that her behavior took place. But I'm trying to put this together for everybody, because I'm sure people that are listening are finding this very interesting. Guys, I think we're going to wrap today, but our next episode, I'm going to roll right into this with Tom regarding the Bush years and foreign policies in particular. And through time, we're going to come back and revisit this whole discussion about Hillary Clinton as the Secretary of State, Benghazi, and the handling of emails once again. So, guys, I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been Operation Truth. My name is Lou Palumbo, Tom Fuentes, my co-conspirator, as I referred to him, although he probably doesn't like that because Tom is pretty straight. I'm kind of like the wild card.
Hey, Lou, prove it.
Well, we're going to have hearings over it, Tom. I mean, over that
Okay,
term. But
good.
in any case, guys, thank you for joining us today. I also encourage you, go back and look at some of these episodes at Between the Lines. You'll see these topics I've spoken to consistently, exactly what we're living today. 2 years ago, I talked about sex trafficking, Phantom Rescue, an organization designed to address that problem. which is a lot bigger than the borders, guys, and a number of issues, including the media. I've been talking to you guys about the media. The media is the fly in the ointment, ladies and gentlemen. We need to get a handle on what they're allowed to do and not do. And I didn't know that the First Amendment permitted you to knowingly disseminate information that was untruthful or inaccurate. Where are the fact checkers on their side? And this doesn't apply to Fox or MSNBC or CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, all of them. Guys, I'm living by one set of rules universally applied. I don't care who you are, because at the end of the day, all of your bad behavior, to put it to you in a polite term, is going to translate to our young people. They're going to have some interesting 10 years ahead of them if we don't change the conversation and the course of this country. And I'll tell you something else in closing. Robert Kennedy said something the other day in these hearings that resonated with me. The lack of civility, decency, and respect in our conversations. That needs to be reinstalled, guys. Thank you for joining us. I didn't mean to continue on, but as you can see, this charges me, not because of me, because I'm out of the woods. So is Tom demographically. It's about our young people. Thank you, guys. And please join us at Operation Truth. See you, I guess, in a few minutes. We're going to be filming another episode.